Well, good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Good? Thumbs up, thumbs down, sideways? Yeah, okay. Well, my name is Diane. I have been at the food bank now for about 4 years. Previous to that, yes, I have a very soft voice. I'm sorry. I'll try very hard to project. Um, so I've been here for 4 years, and before that, I was in the Army. I am a registered dietitian, so I spent 22 years in the Army um, teaching soldiers how to eat right and be fit, which was challenging. um, and so now here at the food bank, we really try to focus on simplicity, because people have gotten out of the kitchen. How many of you cook regularly in your kitchen? Stick three or four? Yeah. So we're trying to get people back into the kitchen, because healthy cooking does not have to be complicated. It can be very, very simple. And today's recipe that we're going to be doing is very simple. You can tailor it however you like. And you can make it spicy, you can make it plain, whatever you like, whatever you choose. Yes, so before we get into the recipe demonstration, we're going to talk a little bit about the diabetes plate method of managing your glucose levels, okay? How many of you have heard of that before? The diabetes plate method. Okay, so one person. So basically, we would take a plate, regular dinner plate, and we would make a line right in the middle, okay? Over here, the whole side of the plate, we recommend to be filled with non-starchy vegetables, right? What are some ideas? What are some of your favorite non-starchy vegetables? Non-starchy.
Oh, non-starchy.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't those things like broccoli?
Broccoli's a good one.
Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts. A small salad. Yeah, usually the leaves and the stems of vegetables are the non-starchy ones. The root ones tend to be, starchy, like corn, potatoes, yeah. So those are the ones that impact your blood glucose the most. And like Allie said last week, they're mainly from the carbohydrates that we eat are the main macronutrient that impacts our blood glucose levels, right? So we really have to be careful when consuming them. So what do we have on the other side of the plate? Now that this one is full of non-starchy vegetables, what do we have over here? Well, over here, we're going to draw a line right there in the middle, and we're going to have protein foods at the top, so a quarter of the plate will be protein foods, and then the bottom of the plate will be your complex carbohydrates, okay? So that's just a simple way of not having to measure things, not having to get too complicated with your meal. That's a simple way of kind of visually knowing how to manage your glucose level. Yes, ma'am.
And like typically, it would be like a regular size plate, right? Isn't it more like a smaller?
Mm,
You can still use a regular size?
you can, just a regular size, I think 9-inch dinner plate is fine. But back in the day when I was, testing to become a dietitian, it was so complicated for people with diabetes. I mean, we had to count starches, we had to count servings and have a scale and all of that. And now this diabetes plate method is super simple and gives you a good idea of just visual impact. But I want to talk about each one of the nutrients. So Allie talked about the main macronutrients. So whenever we have, macro in front of a word, it means large. So that the macronutrients are things that we need a lot of. Okay, so that's the carbohydrates, the proteins, and the fats. Okay, we also need micronutrients too, right? Which would be what? Micronutrients. Small. Vitamins and minerals, right? So we really want to make sure that when we're selecting foods from the grocery store, that we get the most nutritional bang for the buck, right, when we go there. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that. When we talk about protein foods, right, what are we talking about? Give me some ideas of protein. Your meat? What else? Fish, chicken, yes, pork. So anything, we'd like for you to choose meats that are lower fat, right? Because the fat in meat is saturated. And we'll talk about that in a little bit later. But anything, if you're choosing beef or pork, you want to choose anything with the name loin in it, right? Loin. So your pork loin, your sirloin, things like that. Those are the lower fat cuts of meat.
So what about some of us, like I've seen like wagyu, it looks like it doesn't have any fat in it. Like wagyu, is that real?
Oh, have you heard of wagyu? Yes, it's so anything that is gamey like that is lower in fat.
Yeah, 'cause you know, you see zero
Super
fat in
healthy.
wagyu, yeah.
Yes, yeah. My sister likes to eat bison, and when you cut it, it's very. You don't even see any marbling in it. Yeah, super healthy, healthy foods. So, in addition to the meat sources of protein, what are some plant sources of protein? Beans? Yes. Beans. What else? Let me give you some hints.
I know one. Oh gosh, because they use it, they make a lot of stuff out of it.
Tofu.
Tofu, but there's another one. I don't know if it's a fruit or they put in a lot of stuff.
Jackfruit. Do you know I had that? I tried that for the very first time this year.
Okay.
And it is really good. How did you try it?
A friend of me turned it on. I had it in like some ice cream,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like my favorite. It was like butter pecan. They make just like how they use it like tofu.
Mm-hmm.
Basically they can make anything out of it. My
Yeah.
brother is he's a vegan, and he was telling me some things, but I would prefer that over tofu.
And with jackfruit, you can have it either savory or sweet. The way I tried it was with tacos. And I literally I didn't know that jackfruit was in there. The texture's the same. I mean, it was just really, that's a great, great, protein food for you. Yeah. Were you hmm? Yes. Yeah, yeah. Some other jackfruit?
I mean, I know they use the term fruit, but is it a fruit or is
I think it is. I think it is an actual fruit. So, botanically speaking, we call anything with seeds in it a fruit. And like if it's the blossom of the plant.
even like squash is a fruit? Because you can do like the like the noodles from it's like from the squash.
It does have seeds. It is the blossom, but we consider it a vegetable. It's real tricky when it comes to some things. Like a tomato. Tomatoes we normally think of as what? A vegetable, right. But botanically speaking, it is a fruit, you know. So yeah, there's some foods that really fall into two different food groups. But for people with diabetes, we really just have to be careful with the carbohydrate content. So let's take your legumes and beans, for example. They're a great source of protein, but do they have carbohydrates in them as well? They do. So you have to take that into consideration. They're rich in fiber, they're rich in minerals, vitamins, so they're wonderful. But we just have to take into consideration that there is more carbohydrate in that protein source than there is in our meat sources, right? Okay, and then coming down to the carbohydrate foods, the villains. Really, they're not villains, but it's the amount of carbohydrates that we eat, our portion sizes, right? I don't know about you all, but when I was growing up, apples were smaller than a baseball, right? Now they're huge. Oranges. Oranges sometimes look like grapefruit in the store, you know what I mean? So our portion sizes have gotten larger, which fruits are very healthy for us, but we still have to be mindful that a serving is the size of a baseball, not, larger. So we have to be careful with the carbohydrates. But one of the categories of carbohydrate are our grains, okay? What are some of your favorite pasta dishes? Rice, okay. What are some? Hmm? Spaghetti. Yeah, do y'all like more tomato sauced pastas or Alfredo sauced pastas? No? Okay. So when it comes to grains, we want to make sure that we choose the whole grains. And Allie alluded to it in last week's class. But a grain, if you think about it, like a wheat grain, it looks somewhat like this. And on the outside, you have bran. Okay, bran is that it's like the trunk of the plant, if you will. It goes through your whole digestive tract completely undigested, so it helps with bowel functioning. It's super healthy, has lots of minerals. And then when you open it up, you've got the endosperm, which is the starchy part. So if you think of a kernel of corn, it's the inner part of the corn. And then at the very bottom of that corn is a tiny part called the germ. And that's where a lot of the fat would be to allow the plant to be nourished. So when grains go through processing, you've heard of polished rice, right? Refined grains. What happens is the bran is taken off completely. The germ is sometimes, most of the time, removed, and you only have the starch. Okay? So we want you to have whole grains. Okay? When we're talking about bread, we want you to have 100% whole wheat or whole grain. When we're talking about pasta, whole grain pasta. And when we're talking about rice, we're talking about brown rice. Okay? So what happens is that fiber helps your blood glucose levels maintain a nice, even pace because it slows the absorption of the carbohydrates into your body. Okay? So it's a nice, even pace. So complex carbohydrates. Now, have y'all heard those terms, simple versus complex? Okay, so simple is something that is quickly absorbed, like your high fructose corn syrup or your syrups in general, your candy, your sodas, things like that. They're very quickly absorbed, and like we talked about last week, If you're diabetic, your insulin is not working at the rate that it needs to work to get that sugar out of your blood and into your cells where it can be used for energy, right? So we want to really minimize the amount of simple carbohydrates and really focus on complex carbohydrates. And complex carbohydrates are the ones with the fiber in them. Let's see. Fruits, of course, are carbohydrates. Now, fruits, for diabetics, we recommend 2 fruits per day, watching the portion size. A lot of people think that, they can eat as many fruits as they want because fruits are healthy. And that, we know that moderation is the key for everything when it comes to nutrition, right? So we want to really be careful with that. And then we have our starchy vegetables, which everybody loves, right? So your potatoes, your sweet potatoes, your peas, your corn, very healthy things to eat in the right portion amounts, right? So it's not that we want you to avoid them. It's just that we want you to be aware that they do have a higher starch content, and they would fall in that quarter of the plate, in that quarter of the plate where we talk about carbohydrates. Okay? Any questions on that? Neil. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Yes. 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 So she was asking, she's heard conflicting things of whether or not it's healthy, not healthy. And yes, it is a nice, healthy way to get carbohydrates into your diet. You do have to watch the portions. Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. I really like the brown rice that comes in the instant brown rice that comes in the packages that you just put into some boiling water for a few minutes. They're so convenient and very healthy for you. So that's an option that I would like for y'all to consider when you are making rice. There's some that don't. They will have preservatives. Anything in a box is going to have a lot of, some preservatives. Um, but generally speaking, it's a nice way to get complex carbohydrates into your diet. Fat, my favorite food group. It really is. I love it because it performs so many functions in the body, and it's really been demonized for so many years, with the fat. But there are many healthy fats out there. When we're talking about fat, we can break it down into 2 main categories. We've got saturated fat and unsaturated fat. Raise your hand who thinks that saturated fat is healthier. Oh, see, y'all are smart. Y'all already know this. Right. Saturated fat, they're the ones that are solid at room temperature and mainly from animal products, but there are some plant products that are saturated, like coconut oil. But we really want you to choose the unsaturated fat, so the ones that liquid at room temperature. Fats, when you're eating your meal, fats and proteins help really monitor your blood glucose levels throughout the day. How many of you have eaten a really sugary food and about an hour later crashed? Has that ever happened to you? It has happened to me. And it's completely physiological, that your body's digesting it, and that's what happens. So when you follow the diabetes plate method, you're going to have carbohydrates, you're going to have protein, and you're going to have fat, which those two will keep your blood sugars from going like this to more like this. Okay, so you won't feel as tired, you won't feel as sluggish, you'll just feel better in general. There was one other thing that I was going to say about that. Oh, so recent research has shown that the order that you eat your food in makes a difference on your blood sugar levels for your next meal. So when you check your blood sugars, if you eat your non-starchy vegetables first, then your protein, and then your carbohydrates, many studies have shown that helps you manage a steady blood sugar level for a long period of time. Okay, so your non-starchy vegetables first, then your protein, and then your starchy items, okay, your carbohydrate items. And that kind of is intuitive because, a lot of times if we're going to eat our carbohydrates first, we're just going to, stuff ourselves with the carbohydrates, and we won't have as much room for the protein and the vegetables, right? So it is intuitive, but that's something that I just recently learned and wanted to share that with you. Any questions on that? All right, who's ready to get cooking? You ready? Okay. So let's look at what ingredients that we're going to be using today. We've got corn tortilla. This is made out of whole grain. Corn is a whole grain. So we're going to start with that. And we are then going to paint our tortilla with refried beans. So these refried beans, how many of you have made homemade refried beans before? What's like one of the main ingredients? Right. Right. So when we are preparing this, these are non-fat refried beans. They're canned. Now, a lot of people kind of steer clear of canned things because of the sodium level. If you want to make your homemade refried beans, that's fine, but just make sure that you cut back on the traditional way because that is saturated fat usually what we use. But so what I'd like for you to do now is just take your fork and actually, we should probably have everybody wash their hands. If y'all want to wash your hands and get some, and then there's some gloves up here if y'all are interested in using gloves.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Because corn typically has a lot of carbon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know, in choosing, like, if you're going to do something, the corn tortilla is a better option than the flour. So, is this made differently?
This is baked. So this, the tostada, this is baked instead of fried.
Oh,
So
that's
it's,
the difference.
yeah, so, yeah. And the corn is kind of, it retains its fiber, endosperm, germ, and bran.
Okay.
So it's higher in fiber than like a flour tortilla. Yeah, so we're just going to paint the tortilla with our refried beans. And beans are such a wonderful source of so many things. And we at the food bank really like to promote plant-based eating because it's sustainable, it's economical, easier a lot of times. So we've painted our tortilla, and then we are going to take our tomato, and some of you are sharing. So yeah, I think each person is going to have 1/2 of the tomato. But I've got a question for you. What is the problem with this and a knife? It's too wobbly. It's too wobbly. So our first thing that we have to do is know how to hold the knife so that we're in control, right? So we grab the edge of the knife right here, and wrap our fingers around the handle. That way we have control over the knife. I was raised to cut like this, and you don't have a whole lot of control. So just make sure you hold the knife properly. And then I like to cut the edge off, where the stem was. So I just take that, before I get started on that, so properly holding it. And then with your other hand, you're gonna make a claw, right? And so you just hold it down so you don't get any fingertips cut off. You just cut that end off, right? And I like to just hold the tomato with my pointer finger and thumb and just slice through in the middle. So that gives me 2 flat surfaces to cut, right? So do you know the term slice and dice? Well, it wasn't until recently that I found out, why people say that, because you have to slice before you dice, right? You have to slice before you dice. So the first step is holding your knife and just slicing long ways for your tomato, okay? So you just slice it. And then you turn it horizontally and you dice it. Just cut it into very small pieces, like a little bit smaller than a dice. Just like that. What's the main vitamin in a tomato? Vitamin C, that's right. Right now, during flu season, it's really important to get enough vitamin C. And tomatoes are a wonderful way to do that. When we're talking about, one thing I forgot to mention with the non-starchy vegetables, one thing that's really important to consider when eating vegetables is getting the rainbow of colors, because each color offers a different phytonutrient. Like tomatoes are rich in lycopene, super healthy for your immune system. Eggplants are rich in another phytonutrient, also critical. So be aware of that. Try to vary it up a little bit. But tomatoes are a good standby. And then, so we're going to sprinkle the tomatoes on our tostada. You can do what you can. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing up here. I'm just kidding. Yes, you can put the chicken on. Hmm. We are not. We are not. Do you think we could? I don't think we have, yeah. I don't think we do. Yeah, so just put the chicken on there. And one of the reasons why I like this recipe so much is because it has all 5 food groups in there. So we've got the corn tortilla, which is the grain. We've got the beans and the chicken, which are your proteins. The tomato, which is what? Is it a fruit or a vegetable? It's both. But so it could be a fruit or a vegetable in this case. And then we have your lettuce. And this is some beautiful lettuce, the long leaf lettuce. And so one way that we can make things look fancy is to roll the lettuce lengthwise like this, and then just cut ribbons. Just cut ribbons as you go. And it makes it kind of come alive and look festive too when you put the ribbons on top. How many of y'all like avocados? Yes? Okay. So I'm going to cut the avocado and spread, bring it around. Are avocados high in fat? They are higher. They are higher in fat, but it is the good fat. So avocados are a wonderful way to add fat to your diet. Okay, so I'm going to come around and just take some avocado, if you like. But this gives our meal a nice, healthy fat.
How much avocado is
A serving?
that can be a whole thing.
2 full ones. No, I'm just kidding. Um, 1/4. 1/4 of an avocado is considered a serving. Yeah. Do you remember how old you were when you had your first avocado?
I didn't have avocados until I went to Texas.
I didn't either.
Never.
Never?
You don't like them?
What? You don't like them? How do you know you don't like them? Is it the texture?
The texture.
Yeah. So that's one thing that I found.
I just thought I would be funny.
Yeah, I didn't think I would like them because of the texture either. But the longer I've lived, the longer I live in Texas and the more dishes I try with avocado in it, I love them now. Sprinkle a little bit of lime on that avocado once you cut it. And it does 2 things. It adds zest to whatever you're eating, and it helps that avocado retain that beautiful yellow, green, colors that are in there. And if you notice when you cut into an avocado, the part that's closest to the peel, really pay attention to try and get as much of that out of there because that has the most vitamins and minerals of the entire avocado. So the really green part. All right, and then we've got some lime. So you just take your lime and squeeze it on top. And if you like cheese, you can just smush the cheese up. Smush is a formal culinary term that we use here. But just smush it up and sprinkle it on top. And this is queso fresca, and this is a very healthy, no preservative cheese that's very, very popular in this area. Okay. What other things could you add to this tostada? Salsa. What else? Onion, jalapenos. What about cilantro? Yeah, cilantro. Yeah, you can. You could even do like lean ground beef with fajita seasonings on top. But have all of y'all tasted it yet? Okay, let me try mine. Put my avocado on there. And this is a very simple, we teach this recipe to school age kids, because they can come home, they can make this, as a simple snack after school. And you get all of the food groups in that. Mm-hmm. Mm. Okay. So when you're looking at your plate, I gave y'all a copy of some of the diabetes plate method icons. And whenever you have time, oops, whenever you have time, just kind of plan out the day. Plan what could you make for breakfast, lunch, and dinner that would help you follow the diabetes plate meal. And it just takes a little bit of thought, a little bit of planning, and see how you feel. One thing that it does is it reduces the stress of, rush hour. What am I going to make for dinner? What am I going to make for lunch? Rushing out to McDonald's. So it really relieves a lot of the stress around meal planning, which we all know if we can minimize any stress, it's a good thing because we live in a stressed environment. But I want you to do that when you're at home. How am I doing on time? Okay, good. Any questions? No? Okay. Well, enjoy your tostada, and I'm going to enjoy mine, and we'll look forward to seeing y'all back next week. Did you have anything that you wanted to offer, Allie? Okay. Very good. Thank you.